Daniel Rivers cut the engine. 6:30. November rain drummed against his windshield like restless fingers. The porch light stayed dark. Electric bills didn't pay themselves since Lisa died. But something stopped him cold. A stranger sat hunched on his concrete steps, blonde hair plastered to her skull, clothes soaked through, clinging like second skin. And there was Connor, 8 years old, fearless, kneeling beside her like she was wounded prey. His son was wrapping Lisa's navy scarf around trembling shoulders. That scarf, the one that still smelled like vanilla and morning coffee. "Daddy!" Connor's voice cut through the rain. "I found her shivering on our porch." The woman lifted her head. Blue eyes burned through the grey evening, holding secrets that could drown a man. She said nothing, explained nothing, just gripped that scarf with white knuckles, as if letting go meant vanishing into the storm forever. Daniel stepped out into the cold, boots splashing through puddles. 2 years since he'd come home to find Connor crying on these same steps, asking when Mommy would come back from the hospital. Now his son knelt here again. But this time he wasn't crying. He was helping. The way Lisa had taught him before the drunk driver stole her away on a rainy Tuesday that felt just like this one. "Son, come inside," Daniel called, his voice softer than he intended. Connor looked up with those bright green eyes, Lisa's eyes, and shook his head with stubborn determination. "She's really cold, Daddy, like when I had the flu and couldn't stop shaking." The boy's small hands adjusted the scarf with surprising gentleness. The woman finally spoke, her voice barely audible above the rain. "I'm sorry. I just needed somewhere to sit for a moment." Her accent held traces of something refined, educated. Not the voice Daniel had expected from someone sitting alone on a stranger's porch in a November downpour. She started to stand, legs unsteady, and Connor immediately reached out to steady her. "Don't go," the boy said simply. "It's still raining, and Daddy always says we help people when they need it." Daniel felt something twist in his chest. Since Lisa's death, he'd built walls around himself and Connor, keeping the world at arm's length. But here was his son, 8 years old, and already braver than his father, offering shelter to a complete stranger. "What's your name?" Daniel found himself asking. The woman looked up at him, something flickering across her face. Relief, maybe, or surprise that he wasn't sending her away. "Addie?" she said quietly. "Just Addie." Against every instinct that told him to be careful, Daniel nodded. "Come on," he said, fishing his keys from his pocket. "Let's get you dried off." Connor jumped up with excitement, still holding one end of the navy scarf, and began chattering about hot chocolate as they all moved toward the front door. The house welcomed them with the scent of this morning's coffee and the lingering smell of grilled cheese sandwiches. Daniel watched Addie's eyes sweep across the living room, taking in the mismatched furniture, Connor's artwork taped to the refrigerator, and the photograph of Lisa that still sat on the mantel. Connor disappeared into the kitchen, chattering about finding towels. Daniel gestured toward the old brown leather couch. "Please sit," he said. "I should explain," Addie began. But Daniel shook his head. Something in her voice told him that whatever explanation she had wouldn't be simple. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "Connor's right about helping people." The words felt strange coming out of his mouth. When was the last time he'd helped anyone beyond fixing their cars at Morrison's garage? That first evening passed like something from a different life. Connor showed Addie every drawing he'd made in the past month, explaining each one with serious attention. His favorite was a picture of their family. 3 stick figures under a rainbow, with a 4th figure that had wings hovering above them. "That's Mommy," Connor explained matter-of-factly. "She's an angel now, but she still watches us." Daniel had stopped looking at that drawing months ago, but watching Addie study it with genuine interest made something loosen inside him. When Connor finally fell asleep on the couch between them, exhausted from excitement, Daniel found himself really looking at Addie for the first time. Her clothes, even soaked and wrinkled, were expensive. The watch on her wrist wasn't something you picked up at a department store, but it was her hands that caught his attention. Soft, clean, with nails that spoke of regular manicures. These weren't the hands of someone who'd been living rough. "Thank you," she said quietly, careful not to wake Connor. "I know this is strange." Daniel almost laughed. Strange didn't begin to cover it. "Where are you from?" he asked. Addie was quiet for so long he thought she might not answer. "Everywhere and nowhere," she finally said. "I've been between places lately." The next morning brought weak November sunshine and the smell of pancakes. Daniel had woken early, but found that someone had already been in the kitchen. Addie stood at the stove, expertly flipping pancakes while Connor sat at the table, explaining his toy cars. She'd found ingredients Daniel had forgotten he owned, and somehow made breakfast feel like an occasion, instead of just fuel for the day ahead. "I hope you don't mind," she said when she noticed Daniel in the doorway. The simple domesticity of it hit him like a punch to the chest. When was the last time someone else had made breakfast in this kitchen? The coffee she'd made was perfect, not too strong, not too weak, and Daniel found himself wondering how she'd known exactly how he liked it. The days that followed fell into a pattern that felt both foreign and natural. Daniel would leave for work at Morrison's garage, and every evening he came home to find them together. Connor doing homework, while Addie helped with math problems that Daniel struggled with himself, or both of them examining leaves and discussing why they changed colors in the fall. It was during the second week that Daniel began to notice things. The way Addie held a pencil when Connor asked her to draw, precise, controlled, like someone trained in technical illustration. How she bandaged Connor's scraped knee when he fell off his bike, her movements confident and professional. The medical terminology she used when Connor asked about why cuts bled, explanations that went beyond basic first aid. "Daddy," Connor said one evening while they were tucking him into bed. "Addie knows everything about hearts. She drew me a picture of what mine looks like inside, and she knew all the names of the parts. She said she used to work with hearts." Daniel's hand stilled on the blanket. "What kind of work with hearts?" "I don't know." Connor yawned. "But she drew it really good." That night, Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling, pieces of a puzzle scattered in his mind. The expensive clothes, the soft hands. The way she'd known exactly what to do when Connor got hurt. The careful way she answered questions about her past, always deflecting, always vague. And her phone. He'd noticed it buzzing with calls she never answered, her face going pale every time she looked at the screen. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday evening, exactly 3 weeks after Addie had appeared on their porch. Connor was helping her make dinner when the boy decided to surprise them by making hot chocolate. Boiling water splashed across his small hand, and his scream brought both adults running. Daniel saw the injury and froze, his mind jumping to worst-case scenarios. But Addie moved like lightning. She had Connor at the sink with cool water running over the burn before Daniel had processed what happened. "Connor, look at me," she said firmly but gently. "You're going to be fine. This is a first-degree burn, which means it looks scary but it's not dangerous." Her hands moved with clinical precision, checking the extent of the burn, evaluating whether they needed professional medical care. "How do you know all this?" Daniel heard himself ask, his voice sharper than he intended. Addie's hand stilled for just a moment. I've seen burns before," she said, but the words sounded hollow. Daniel watched her work, noting the way she knew exactly which ointment to use, how she bandaged Connor's hand with the expertise of someone who'd done it hundreds of times. "Addie," Connor said as she finished wrapping his hand. "Are you a doctor?" The question fell into the kitchen like a stone into still water. Daniel felt his world tilt as he watched color drain from Addie's face. "I was," she finally whispered. "I used to be." The admission hung between them like a live wire. "What happened?" Daniel asked, though part of him wasn't sure he wanted to know. Addie looked at Connor, whose 8-year-old face was bright with curiosity, then back at Daniel. "I lost my license," she said quietly. 3 months ago. After Connor went to bed, they sat in the living room with the television playing quietly. "How does a doctor lose her license?" Daniel asked finally. When Addie spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "By caring more about saving a child than following hospital policy." The words hit Daniel like a physical blow. "What does that mean?" "It means I used hospital resources, expensive resources, to save a little boy whose family couldn't afford the surgery he needed. It means I violated protocol and cost the hospital $200,000 and made some very powerful people very angry." Her voice was steady, but Daniel could see her hands shaking. "The boy lived, but I lost everything, my license, my position, my family's respect." Daniel stared at her. "You saved a child's life and they punished you for it?" "The hospital has rules, insurance requirements. I broke those rules." She looked at him with eyes that held more pain than anyone should carry. "But I'd do it again. Even knowing what it would cost me, I'd do it again." "Why didn't you tell me?" Daniel asked. "Would you have let me stay if you'd known I was a disgraced doctor running from a scandal?" The honesty stung, because she was probably right. 3 weeks ago, he would have seen her as a complication he and Connor didn't need. Now the thought of her leaving made his chest tight with panic. "My phone's been ringing for weeks," Addie continued, pulling the device from her pocket. "My family's lawyers, the hospital's board of directors." As if summoned by her words, the phone buzzed with an incoming call. Daniel could see the caller ID. "Dr. Morrison, urgent." "Morrison," Daniel repeated. "As in Morrison's hospital?" The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. "Dr. Morrison is my father," Addie said quietly. "And I just cost his hospital $250,000. Daniel felt the ground shift beneath him. "Your father owns Morrison's hospital. My family has owned it for 3 generations. I was supposed to take over the cardiac surgery department next year. Instead, I threw it all away for a 7-year-old boy whose parents worked 3 jobs between them and still couldn't afford his surgery." That night, Daniel fell asleep peacefully for the first time since Lisa died. He woke to the sound of Connor's laughter and the smell of bacon, but the peace shattered when he looked out the bedroom window and saw a black Mercedes sedan parked across the street, expensive and out of place in their working-class neighborhood. Daniel dressed quickly and found Addie and Connor in the kitchen. Addie was listening to Connor's chatter, but Daniel could see the tension in her shoulders. She'd seen the car, too. The doorbell cut through Connor's excited planning like a blade. All 3 of them froze. "I'll get it," Daniel said, but Addie was already standing. "No," she said quietly. "They're here for me." Daniel opened the door to find 2 men in expensive suits. The older one was tall and silver-haired, with the kind of presence that commanded boardrooms. "Mr. Rivers," the older man said with practiced politeness. "I'm Dr. Harrison Morrison. We need to speak with my daughter." Dr. Morrison stepped uninvited into Daniel's living room, his eyes sweeping over the mismatched furniture, Connor's drawings, the general comfortable shabbiness of a home where people lived instead of entertained. "You've caused quite enough trouble, Adelaide," he said. "This little rebellion has gone on long enough. The board is willing to overlook your indiscretion if you come back now and agree to the conditions we've discussed." Daniel felt Connor press against his side, confused and frightened. "Who are these people, Daddy?" his son whispered. Daniel put a protective arm around Connor's shoulders. The other man, a lawyer, spoke for the first time. Mr. Rivers, I'm sure you understand that Dr. Morrison is going through a difficult personal situation. Her family appreciates your hospitality, but she needs to return home to address some legal matters. Legal matters? Daniel asked, looking at Addie. Her face had gone carefully blank, but he could see fear in her eyes. Dr. Morrison answered before Addie could speak. My daughter violated numerous hospital protocols. The matter is complicated by the fact that she's been unavailable to discuss the situation with our legal team and the state medical board. I told you I wouldn't cooperate with a whitewash. Addie said quietly. That child needed surgery, and I provided it. I won't apologize for saving his life. Her father's face hardened. You cost the hospital $200,000. You embarrassed our family name, and now you're hiding in this... He gestured around Daniel's living room with barely concealed distaste. Daniel felt anger building in his chest. This situation, he said carefully, is my home, and Addie is welcome here. Dr. Morrison turned his attention to Daniel for the first time, really looking at him. Daniel could feel himself being evaluated and found wanting. Mr. Rivers, you don't understand the complexities of my daughter's situation. She needs proper legal representation. She needs to be with her family. The lawyer opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder thick with documents. Dr. Morrison, if you don't cooperate with the investigation, the hospital could face additional lawsuits. Your continued absence is making everything worse. Daniel felt Addie's composure crack. How much worse? She asked quietly. Potentially criminal charges. The lawyer said matter-of-factly. Unauthorized practice, fraud, theft of medical resources. You have until Monday, Dr. Morrison said curtly. Then, willing or not, this matter gets resolved. He looked at Daniel again. I'm sure Mr. Rivers understands that interfering with family business would be unwise. After they left, the house felt smaller, the air thinner. Connor looked up at Daniel with confused eyes. Is Addie in trouble? Daniel knelt down to his son's level. Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements about what's right and what's wrong. He said carefully. Addie helped someone, but some people think she helped in the wrong way. But helping people is good. Connor protested. You always say helping people is the right thing to do. Daniel glanced at Addie, who was standing by the window. It is the right thing, Daniel said firmly. Sometimes the right thing is complicated, but it's still right. That evening, after Connor was asleep, Daniel and Addie sat on the back porch, sharing a bottle of beer. I should go? Addie said quietly. This isn't fair to you and Connor. Daniel was quiet for a long time. 3 weeks ago, Connor hadn't smiled in months. He said finally, he was the perfect, well-behaved child of a grieving widower, but he wasn't happy. He's a remarkable boy. Addie said, he has so much love to give. Daniel nodded. He gets that from his mother. Lisa never met a stray she wouldn't feed or a person she wouldn't help. She would have brought you inside that first night without a second thought. She would have liked you. What about you? Addie asked softly. What do you see? Daniel looked at her, taking in the profile that belonged in boardrooms, the hands that had saved lives, the eyes that held more pain than anyone should carry. I see someone who gave up everything to do what she thought was right. I see someone who makes my son laugh and doesn't think she deserves to be happy. If I stay, Addie said eventually, things are going to get complicated. There will be lawyers and investigations. Your quiet life won't be quiet anymore. Daniel thought about his quiet life, the careful routine he and Connor had built. Maybe quiet is overrated, he said. Maybe Connor and I need a little complication. Monday came with crisp November morning that promised winter. Daniel woke to find Addie already up, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a legal pad covered in her neat handwriting. Connor bounced into the kitchen with his usual morning energy, completely unaware that this might be their last normal breakfast together. At exactly 10 o'clock, the black Mercedes returned, this time accompanied by a second car. Daniel watched from the living room window as 4 people got out: Dr. Morrison, the lawyer, a woman in a severe navy suit, and a man with a badge. They brought reinforcements, Daniel told Addie grimly. The woman in the navy suit stepped forward when Daniel opened the door. "Mr. Rivers, I'm Agent Sarah Chen, FBI. We need to speak with Dr. Adelaide Morrison regarding potential violations of federal healthcare regulations." The FBI. Daniel felt his stomach drop. This wasn't just about hospital politics anymore. This was criminal. "I understand," Addie said quietly. "May I have a moment to get my things?" Agent Chen nodded curtly. 5 minutes. Daniel followed Addie upstairs, his mind racing. "Is there anything I need to know?" he asked. "I told you the truth," she said without looking at him. "I performed unauthorized surgery on a child who needed it. Everything else is just consequences." "What about Connor?" Daniel asked. "What do I tell him when he comes home and you're gone?" Addie's hands stilled on the navy scarf she'd been wearing every day. "Tell him that sometimes people have to go away, but that doesn't mean they stop caring." She held out the scarf to Daniel. "This should stay here. It belongs in this house." Daniel took the scarf, feeling the soft wool that still carried traces of Addie's perfume mixed with Lisa's vanilla scent. "This doesn't feel finished," he said. "Whatever this is between us, it doesn't feel done." Addie looked at him with eyes that held more regret than should fit in one person. "Some things don't get to be finished," she said softly. "Some things just end." And then they were gone, taking Addie with them, leaving Daniel standing in his doorway watching the tail lights disappear. The house felt enormous and empty. When Connor came home from school, bouncing with excitement about his spelling test, the absence hit Daniel like a physical blow. "Where's Addie?" Connor asked, looking around the empty kitchen. Daniel knelt down to his son's level, searching for words. "Addie had to go away," he said carefully. "She had some important things she needed to take care of." Connor's face fell. "But she didn't say goodbye," he protested. "She promised we'd make my volcano explode together." Daniel felt his own heart breaking. "Sometimes people have to leave quickly," Daniel said, "but that doesn't mean they wanted to go." 3 weeks later, Connor came home from school with red eyes and the defensive posture of a child who'd been fighting. "Tommy Martinez said Addie was a criminal," Connor said fiercely. "He said she stole things from a hospital. I told him that was stupid, that Addie would never steal anything." Daniel felt protective anger surge through him. "Tommy Martinez doesn't know anything about Addie or our family," Daniel said firmly. "Addie was a doctor who saved a little boy's life. Sometimes the right thing and the legal thing aren't the same thing." Months passed in grey monotony. Daniel and Connor fell into a routine that worked but felt incomplete. Then, on a cold Wednesday evening, Mrs. Patterson appeared at Daniel's door with a newspaper. "Daniel," she said, "have you seen this?" The headline made his stomach drop. "Morrison Hospital heiress pleads guilty to federal charges." Daniel read with growing dread. Addie had accepted a plea deal: 5 years probation, community service, permanent revocation of her medical license, and restitution to the hospital. But there was no quote from Addie herself. Daniel showed Connor the article, explaining it in terms an 8-year-old could understand. "Does this mean she can never come back?" Connor asked. Daniel looked at his son's hopeful face and felt his heart break a little more. I don't know, buddy. Maybe someday. Winter brought Connor's 9th birthday and Christmas, both marked by Connor's quiet hope that somehow Addie would appear. Connor made presents for people who weren't there. A drawing for Addie of their house, with all 3 of them standing in front of it, smiling. Daniel found it on Christmas morning, carefully wrapped and labeled, "For Addie, love Connor." Then came the phone call that changed everything. Daniel was at Morrison's garage when his boss hollered that Connor's school was calling. "There's been an incident," the voice said. "Connor was in an altercation with some older boys. He's quite upset." Daniel's blood turned to ice. "What kind of incident?" "He's physically fine, but he was defending someone important to him." Daniel found Connor in the principal's office, tear-streaked but defiant, with a bruise on his cheek. "They said mean things about Addie." Connor said fiercely. "They said she was a criminal, and we were stupid. I told them they were wrong about Addie, and they started pushing me. So I pushed back." Daniel looked at his son, this fierce, loyal boy who'd defended someone who wasn't even there, and felt proud and heartbroken at the same time. That evening, Daniel made a decision that felt both terrifying and inevitable. He called his brother Mike, a lawyer in Cleveland. "I need to find Adelaide Morrison," he said without preamble. "I need to know where she is and how to contact her." After much persuasion, Mike agreed to try to pass along a message through her lawyer. "Just tell her that Connor and I want her to know she's missed," Daniel said. 2 weeks passed without word. Then the call came on a Tuesday evening, while Daniel was helping Connor with homework. "Daniel." The voice was familiar, but different, quieter, more uncertain. "It's Addie." Daniel's heart jumped into his throat. "Addie," he said, and Connor's head snapped up from his homework, eyes wide with hope. "How are you?" "I'm okay. Different, but okay. I got a message that you were looking for me." Her voice carried across the phone line like a lifeline. "Connor and I wanted you to know we're thinking about you, that we miss you." "I miss you too," she said softly. "Both of you, more than I should." "Where are you?" Daniel asked. "I'm in Columbus," Addie said. "I'm doing my community service at a free clinic in a low-income neighborhood. It's not surgery, but it's medicine, sort of." Daniel could hear something in her voice. Not quite happiness, but something close to contentment. "That sounds perfect for you," he said, meaning it. The conversation lasted 20 minutes, Connor chattering about school and friends, Addie apparently listening with the patient attention Daniel remembered. They made plans for Connor to call her on Sunday evenings. It wasn't much, but it was contact, connection, a thread that linked their lives across the miles. The Sunday phone calls became routine. Connor would sit by the phone at exactly 7 o'clock, waiting for Addie's call. She told him about the patients at the clinic. Connor told her about school and his projects. Daniel usually took the phone for a few minutes at the end, and those conversations were both easier and harder than he'd expected. One Sunday in March, Addie sounded worried. "My probation officer has been asking about my living situation. I think someone reported that I don't have family support here. They might recommend I move back to be closer to my family." The irony was bitter. Addie might be forced back to the family that had rejected her. "That's insane," Daniel said. "You're not isolated. You have us. A phone call once a week doesn't count as family support," Addie said gently. Daniel felt something crystallize in his mind, a decision that felt both crazy and completely logical. "Then maybe we need to change that," he said. "Connor has spring break next week. We could drive down, see where you're living. Connor could see that you're okay, and maybe your probation officer could see that you do have family support." "More than anything," Addie said when he asked if she wanted to see them. "But I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking," Daniel said firmly. "I'm telling you. Connor and I are driving to Columbus next weekend. The week crawled by with Connor counting down the days on his calendar. Friday afternoon arrived with spring sunshine and Connor's barely contained excitement. The drive to Columbus took 3 hours of Connor's chatter about everything he wanted to show Addie. They met at the clinic, and the sight of Addie hit Daniel like a physical blow. She looked different, thinner, her clothes simpler, her hair shorter. But when she saw Connor running toward her, her face lit up with joy. And suddenly the months between collapsed. Connor launched himself into her arms, and Addie caught him and spun him around, both of them laughing with pure happiness. They toured the clinic, Addie introducing Connor as "my family from home." The clinic was busy but warm, and Addie moved through it with quiet competence, clearly valued and respected. They went out for pizza that evening, Connor chattering non-stop. They spent Saturday exploring Columbus like tourists, visiting a weather station and the Science Museum. That evening, after Connor had fallen asleep on Addie's couch, Daniel and Addie sat on her small balcony. "This is a good life," Daniel said. "You seem happy here." "I am," Addie replied, sounding surprised. "The work is meaningful, the people are real, and I'm finally using my skills the way I always meant to. This weekend is about hello," Addie said firmly when Daniel suggested it was goodbye. "About showing you my life and meeting yours. I can't come back to Millbrook, Daniel. That life is over for me. But that doesn't mean we can't have a different kind of relationship. The kind where Connor calls me every Sunday and you drive down here for spring break and I drive up there for Connor's birthday. The kind where we're family even if we don't live in the same house." It was the first time any of them had said the word love out loud, and it hung in the night air like a benediction. Sunday morning brought the bittersweet ritual of packing. "I wish we could stay longer," Connor said. Addie knelt down to his level. "Sometimes love means finding new ways to be together, like Sunday phone calls and visits." Connor asked. "Exactly like that," Addie confirmed. "I'm just going to be family from a distance." 8 months later, Daniel stood in his kitchen making pancakes on a Saturday morning in October, listening to Connor chatter about his upcoming science fair. The phone rang at exactly 9 o'clock, Addie calling for their weekend check-in. The visits had become routine. Addie coming to Millbrook every few months, Daniel and Connor driving to Columbus for long weekends. It wasn't the life any of them had planned, but it was the life they'd built together. "How's the clinic?" Daniel asked when he took the phone. "Busy," Addie replied. "We're expanding, adding a mental health component. I'm going to be training as a counselor." Daniel heard the excitement in her voice, the same passion she'd once brought to surgery now directed toward a different kind of healing. That evening, as Daniel tucked Connor into bed, his son asked the question that had become part of their bedtime routine. "Daddy, do you think we'll always be family with Addie?" Daniel smoothed Connor's hair, thinking about the different kinds of forever. "Yes," he said with complete certainty. "Some families are made by blood, and some are made by choice. Addie chose us, and we chose her. That's the kind of family that lasts forever." Daniel headed downstairs and sat on the back porch, with a cup of coffee, looking out at the garden he and Connor had planted, and thinking about the strange, wonderful way life had unfolded. He'd thought losing Lisa meant he'd never have family beyond Connor again. He'd been wrong. Sometimes family came in unexpected packages, showed up on your doorstep in the rain, and stayed in your heart even when they couldn't stay in your house. The October night was crisp and clear, full of stars and possibility. Somewhere in Columbus, Addie was probably preparing for the next day's patients, thinking about the phone call she'd had with Connor and the visit they were planning for Thanksgiving. Daniel finished his coffee and went inside, the familiar rituals of a man responsible for keeping a home safe and warm. On the kitchen table, Connor had left a family tree project that showed all the different ways people could be connected, with a special branch labeled Chosen Family Addie. That night, Daniel fell asleep. Easily, the way he had learned to do again. The house was quiet but not empty, filled with the presence of all the people who loved and were loved within its walls. Right down the hall, Connor slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that family could take many forms, but love was love, constant and unchanging regardless of distance or circumstance. And 8 hours away in Columbus, Addie was living her new life with grace and purpose, forever part of their chosen family.